Good morning to you. It's a wonderful morning here in St. Louis, and it's a little cold. Not too cold. Doesn't make me want to not be here. Um, Things are good for us. I'm able on this wonderful winter morning to play guitars that I love playing, play music that I love playing. In the week since our last broadcast, I've kind of brushed up on some Christmas hymns. Um, and I don't know if I've spoken about this before, but people always ask me what guitar players you listen to. And of course, I have my influences through the years: Daniel Lanois, John Scofield, Billy Gibbons, and even bass players, Jaco Pastorius, and that kind of thing. Those are my main ones. But um, I, I've the guys who really, the men and women who've really taught me how to play the guitar have actually, ironically, been piano players and keyboard players, organ players, mostly of the church organ origin. And so when I take an old song like "O Come Emmanuel" or whatever, I will take the original, not the original, but the oldest piece of sheet music that I can get. There's no chords written above it or any of that stuff. I just have to kind of figure it out. And they're often in really challenging keys for the guitar. And I'm working on one hymn right now that I'm from a performance that I did last night. I'm very aware that I'm not going to play it for a while until I get a little better. But it's in E flat, and man, it's tricky. But E flat is a key you don't want to play guitar in. But these things present challenges, and you learn from them. And um, one of the things that I've come to not tolerate at all through my musical experiences of working with other creatives is I can't tolerate laziness. I despise it in other musicians, and this is a lot of work. You roll up your sleeves and you learn, and you put yourself face to face with things that kind of humble you. And the key to all of it, and this is where the general life application is. There's a thin line between humiliation and humbling, and what I do to myself when I perform a song that I'm not ready for is I kind of humiliate myself, and it's not intentionally, but the result of that is that kind of an experience. But on the path to that really negative end, I'm humbling myself. So the key is to take a road that's more into, you want a prideful road. You want to look back on your work and say, I did a good job with that. It wasn't perfect, but I did a good job with that. And I learned a lot. And I changed the concept of what I'm doing, maybe for other people and other musicians. And that's what I'm proud of. There's so much in these old hymns. I'm going to thumb through my book here and maybe play another one. This is one that I around the season I normally sing in French, and I didn't do this one last night. I'm going to be pretty much sight reading this, and so let's see if I can pull this off. It's got a really. I want you to listen to the bridge in it. It's almost kind of French or something, 1930s French, and it's me having my way with a Christmas song. And we'll talk about that in a second. Here we go. I gotta get this delay set differently. Drive me crazy. start that over. That's the problem with sight reading. I can't read very well. There we go. Oh, Holy Night. The French translation of that is pretty darn deep, and I wish I could. I wish I had the lyrics in front of me. But last year for a Christmas service in St. Louis, I sang in French, and it became very operatic, and it was really wonderful. But opera is one of those things that you have to be all in. You know. What I love about music is that music has taught me so much. Yeah, you can take a seat there. We've got a guest, and I'll tell you, we've got an audience today, and here in our little studio. Um, First of all, you might hear him breathing. Thurston, our newly operated upon dog, seems to be. It's so cool. We had an operation on Thurston this last week, and I'm remembering things about the way he was 5 years ago or whatever. That his condition had just began to hide and hide and hide, and it's in such a gradualness that I had forgotten some of these little traits that he had, and it's kind of wonderful to see him coming back, and it's like going back into a time machine. I mean, I'm not saying he's a completely young dog now, but Thurston's 12 and a half, and we had some surgery done, and we've got some surgery coming up, and so Thurston has joined us in the studio. He's breathing. And we have a great friend of mine, James Nave, is in from Taos, New Mexico. He's a writer and has just published a book, Write What You Don't Know. Do I have that correct? With Allegra Houston. And they're both inspiring folks that I love to visit out there. We do house concerts at their place and that kind of thing. And Nave has invited me to be occasionally a guest at some of his retreats and workshops, wherein he shares his interpretation and treatment of Julia Cameron's work with the Artist's Way and that sort of thing. And at this point, Nave's been doing it so long, he has his own twist on even the Artist's Way approach and so on, and people are coming to him, straight to him, to kind of get their inspiration. In much in the same way that when I take on a song like "Oh Holy Night," again, this was an old arrangement that came from a church organ. Can you picture somebody in France, playing? Bien oui, chrétien. What's the next? Oh, come on now. Bien oui, chrétien. La ta solennelle, c'est la nuit. La nuit de Rédempteur. Anyway, I can't read it and sing it at the same time, but these are just wonderful little voices, except for the part, and this is where the comparison to Navi comes in. I'm going, da da, where the da 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 da. That just sounded so Edith Piaf to me, So I did this kind of. Which in a certain way, might be considered complete blasphemy, but when I'm singing over that, you don't really notice the dark twists in the chord. Is la 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 la. And there's this dark underpinning to it, but, the melody kind of carries the whole thing. But what I was getting to at the very beginning of this is that in the same way that music has taught me, as an example of how music has taught me lessons about life in general, with opera, you can't mess around. And I just kind of messed around for the sake of an example. But if you're going to do an opera, you have to do it full in. You can't do if you do if you do an opera without full commitment, it just doesn't sell. And people are like, this person is not really, something's wrong, even if you don't know music. And so I think in life, I'll just say that whatever I accept, whatever job I accept, I don't care if it's loading trucks when I was a kid for UPS. And I occasionally would dig ditches for construction companies around the foundations of buildings so that the tar could be placed on the masonry and so on. I do it with full commitment. I try to do a good job. I don't always succeed. But as long as I'm going to take a job, I do it with full commitment. You have to do that with opera, and you have to do that with this church music. The thing about these Christmas songs is that everybody knows them. And in a lot of the trades that we do throughout life, the general public doesn't know whether or not we're doing a good job, I hate it when people say to me, oh, nobody's going to notice. Just all those mistakes you say you made, nobody noticed. Well, then I'm thinking, well, then who am I playing for? Am I playing with people who have any discernment at all? If they don't notice, why do I put all this time into this stuff? But, when I go to a doctor and he or she gives me a physical or something, I don't really know how intuitive they are, how much they know about the human body. I have to have a certain faith. But the thing about Christmas music is that everybody knows the melody. We're on an equal playing field. If you're listening to a Robert Frost poem, what is it, The Road Not Taken? Is that most of us know that. And when those words aren't right, you go, oh man, that poor poet. So you kind of got to get this right. And if I play a little bit off in Oh Holy Night or the Christmas song, boom, everybody knows it. But I like that about it. Anyway, I think this would be a great time to officially bring in the winter time. I know that it's not the winter solstice. I'm a Southerner. I grew up in the deep South in Jacksonville, Florida, and the solstice means nothing to me. Whenever it's cold, that's when wintertime is. That's really how you need to gauge wintertime. When it starts getting cold in anything 40 or below, that's wintertime, for me at least. I want to show you a picture that we took the other night. My wife and I officially celebrated the beginning of the Christmas season, and we went to the Boy Scout troop tree display in St. Louis. And I want to see if you can zoom in. I don't know if you can zoom in, Margot, on the Scout. The Scout is so proud of his work with that tree. Look at that. And just the thought that we were standing next to a real live Scout. I know if you live in, I've been in the city too long, the big city. And the concept of a Boy Scout just seems so essentially Americana to me. It's like it's in there with parades and checkered tablecloths and cornbread and butter and honey and all of that stuff and Norman Rockwell paintings. And here we are standing next to a Scout and a Christmas tree. But doesn't the Christmas tree what's the word I'm looking for? That it's a celebration. It's a ritual. Doesn't that ritual seem a little odd to you all? Can somebody write me and give me a little feedback about this? I mean, here we're buying something that a few days, maybe a week or two before a certain date, and let's say that certain date is Christmas, December 25th. before December 25th, this object has a certain value. It has a value of $100, let's say. And December 26th, it has no value. I mean, you couldn't sell that tree for the same. And furthermore, this tree is dead. It's not even living. I mean, it thinks it's alive, but it won't be alive. I mean, it's really not. And it's just bizarre to me, but we still do it. The ritual of going and finding a scout troop that's selling a tree, it's just a wonderful thing. And it reminds me of my childhood. These songs remind me of my childhood. And that's what I like about the Christmas season most.
There's someone Steve from Queens was a scout.
Steve from Queens, how far? You were a scout in Queens. Yes, okay. The point is, Boy Scouts is a phenomenon in the big city. I get you. I'm with you there. But it shouldn't surprise me that the folks in the boroughs do these sorts of Americana rituals. Why not? But I guess I'm just putting on full pageantry my ignorance, which this show is kind of all about. But anyway, enough of me. I really want to celebrate and bring on the winter officially with the introduction of my good friend and traveling poet, traveling writer, James Nave. We don't have... I did a show last night in St. Louis, and we just didn't have enough time to set up 2 stools and 2 mics. So I'm just going to turn the mic over to James Nave and slip out for a second. He's going to recite some poetry and tell you about what he's doing, and I'll be right back with you. Again, this is Walter Parks with Hymns and Hollers, and it's Sunday, December 11th. How's that? Okay, James Nave. What's that, Margot?
Christine Winzine's birthday.
Christine Winzine's birthday. That's a cool birthday. Happy birthday, Christine. Hold on. This is like being in a space capsule. Y'all can't see it, but I'm like, here we go. Okay.
So I'm taking Walter's place, which is a difficult thing to do, as all of you know, especially those of you who have been watching Hymns and Hollers for the many times Walter has offered it over the last 2 or 3 years. I myself have watched this show very often from Taos, New Mexico. So my name is James Nave. Walter and I have known each other for many, many years, and it's a real pleasure to be able to step in and be part of this for just a little while. So Walter mentioned that I have a book called Write What You Don't Know that I wrote with my creative collaborator, Allegra Houston. And the reason why we titled the book Write What You Don't Know, and the reason why that title fits into the holiday Christmas season, is because our book is an approach to the imaginative process. And what you don't know is actually not so much misleading. It's a suggestion that there are many things that we have, that we possess, that we don't have access to in the moment. And yet it's there somewhere. And when we ask our imaginations to engage in that search into our interior, into our the deeper recesses of who we are, and the imagination goes into those deeper recesses and pulls something out, and there's a discovery that happens. So actually what we don't know is more about what we have yet to discover that's always been there. So the holiday season, the Christmas season, does come at the time when the earth in the northern hemisphere is moving toward the darkest night of the year. Conversely, in the southern hemisphere, the earth is moving for the people in the southern hemisphere, and maybe you are in the southern hemisphere listening to this. It's moving toward the longest day of the year. So the long and the short days are all contained within the earth, just like our imaginations contain so many things that are within us. And so when we are here at the holiday season, thinking about scouting, and Walter talked about the scout. I was there when Walter and Margot bought the Christmas tree, and the fellows, the scout fellows, they were in their uniforms, and it was chilly. I had a thick jacket on, but those lads, they had their scout outfits on, a little long undershirt under to keep them warm. I don't know how they stayed warm, but they seemed to be very happy. Maybe they were all aglow because they were scouts. So when you think about scouting and you think about the imagination, you quickly come to exploration. And you come to what it is inside your imagination that keeps surprising you. There's a quote, a poetic quote by Charles Wright that I use often when I'm talking about imagination in any season of the year. But the question is this, and I'll propose it to you for our holiday reflections. What is it inside your imagination that keeps surprising you at odd moments when something is given back you didn't know you had in solitude, spontaneously, and with great joy? What is it inside your imagination that keeps surprising you at odd moments, those odd moments when something is given back you didn't know you had in solitude, spontaneously, and with great joy? Last night when we were buying the Christmas tree, there was a little fellow there. He maybe 6, 7, 8 years old. I couldn't quite tell. He was all bundled up. He was short, a knee-high kind of guy. And he was pretending like he was the Christmas tree, and he was saying, how much do I cost? And he was imagining himself as a Christmas tree. He was giving himself great value, and he wanted to have people wrap him up and take him home and let him sit in the house and glow like a Christmas tree. So this little lad's imagination was quite vivid and quite active when we bought the Christmas tree. Even though the night was cold, his imagination was warm and vital, and I mean, might even say it was hot. So I'm really pleased to be able to be here and just add a little bit of a few thoughts to the idea of how our imaginations work. And if ever you would like to engage your imagination, my creative collaborator Allegra Houston and I host an Imaginative Storm Writing Prompt of the Week gathering every Saturday morning at noon Eastern Time, and it's always free. The door's always open. If you like to write, if you like to stimulate your imagination, you can join us. You can go to imaginativestorm.com, and there you'll find the Zoom link. One of the things I'd like to do as I make my exit and bring Walter back on after having said a few things about our imaginative process, I'm here to present A Child's Christmas in Wales by Dylan Thomas, and we're going to do that this afternoon here at Walter and Margot's house. And I've been reciting A Child's Christmas in Wales since 1987. Can you believe it? It's 24 minutes long, and I have been reciting it and performing it all these years. And every year I offer it, as I'm going to offer you just a little bit now. And every year when I offer it, I find that I am discovering more and more and more about the thing. And I think, well, I should know this by now. And when it comes to literature and the imaginative process, it's brand new every single time. You think you know something, but write what you don't know. So after 30 years or more of reciting A Child's Christmas in Wales, I'm still discovering a bit of it. So what I'd like to do is just give you the opening of it, to give you a feel for it. And it's a memory piece. We remember back. And you remember your childhood, I remember mine. We all remember the things. But every time we remember back into the times gone by, we have a different version of it. The core of it's the same, but the version is a little different. So this story is about a man reflecting back on his childhood in Wales during the tough times in the 1930s, when it was cold and miserable and the snow was deep and nobody had much food, but they still enjoyed their holiday. And the man reflects back, and it starts on the afternoon of the day of Christmas Eve, goes all the way to Christmas night. And this is the way it opens. So just to give you a sense of the feeling. So here we go. One Christmas was so much like another. In those years around the Seatown corner, now they're out of all sound, except for the distant speaking of the voices I sometimes hear a moment before sleep. I can never remember whether it snowed for 6 days and 6 nights when I was 12, or whether it snowed for 12 days and 12 nights when I was 6. All of the Christmases rolled down toward the two-tongued sea like a cold and headlong moon bundling down the sky. That was our street. And they stop at the rim of the ice-edged, fish-freezing waves. I plunge my hands into the snow and I bring out whatever I can find. In goes my hand into that wool-white, bell-tongued ball of holidays resting at the rim of the carol-singing sea, and out come Mrs. Protheroe and the fireman. That's the opening of A Child's Christmas in Wales, and the boys in the piece go on to visit Mrs. Protheroe, and they go out and they look at Christmas throughout the town, and they throw snowballs and they ask questions. They wonder if the fish can see it snowing. They meet some dewlap dogs, and then they have some other characters like Auntie Hannah, who liked porch, standing in the snowbound backyard singing like a big-bosomed thrush. And so that's A Child's Christmas in Wales. I'll be doing that tonight. And also on December the 18th, if you go to jamesnave.com, you can join me on Zoom, and I'll be doing it again on a Zoom call, and that'll be next weekend. It'll be 6 p.m. Eastern Time. So happy holidays, Merry Christmas if you celebrate Christmas, or whatever other holidays you celebrate during this time. Enjoy them, and thank you for being on Hymns and Hollers. Walter does a good job. I'm a big fan, and I know you are too. So please welcome Walter Parks and his guitars, the mini guitars, back.
Thanks, Bobby. Thank you very much. Woo! James Nave. I don't know about y'all, but I listen best when my eyes are closed, and a lot of times even when I'm performing, I'll shut my eyes because I'm trying to listen as if I'm listening to a record, because I'm actually imagining, as James Nave was talking about, I'm imagining my performance, my live performance, being on a record as I'm making it. But speaking of imagination, Nave, my caution with imagination, this is a personal thing, but I don't know if anybody else can relate. I find that there's a real thin line between a vivid imagination and delusions of grandeur. Because I can imagine myself. On one hand, I have to imagine myself playing on the stage of Carnegie Hall, right? I have to imagine that. And in order for me to have a chance at getting there, so to speak. And I've talked to a lot of performers who've made it there. And I've played on the stage at Carnegie Hall twice. But when I was younger, I imagined myself doing these things. But I guess what I'm saying is just, you have to have that imagination to drive you. You have to have that imagination to tell yourself, I have a shot at this. I belong doing this. But then you still have to put in the butt time, as I call it. You have to sit on the stool, and you have to work out the music, and you have to put in the time. It's not given to you. So I can imagine it all day long. And that's fun. It's a great place to be. It's the prerequisite. I have to imagine it. But I have to be careful that I don't stay in that place too long. I have to ask myself, am I gauging okay? Is my imagination in check with what's reality? And for me, reality is, this is going to sound really blasphemous, maybe to a lot of artists, but my reality is the almighty dollar, my gauge, my measure. In other words, if I'm able to inspire people to put some money in a donation bucket, or if I'm able to draw enough people to my concerts, whereas wherein beforehand they know farewell, that they know full well that they're going to have to pay an admission fee, and I succeed at that, then I realize that my imagination is in check. I'm doing a good job of connecting with people. And it's a little bit of a cruel gauge, but I don't know of any other real gauge for it. If you have a thought about that.
I do have a thought about that, and I will come. For those of you who are watching this, I'm nearby. Walter and I are having this conversation. So when I talk about imagination, I'm exploring the notion that we are all born with a very active imagination. What is it inside your imagination that keeps surprising you? So the imagination is part of the survival process that we have that keeps us moving throughout our lives. And so when I'm talking about imagining, it's the way we see images, it's the way we organize things, and the relationship between the imagination and the rational mind is an interesting one. The irrational mind is what keeps your rear end in the chair. The imagination is what gives your rational mind material to work with. So it's this organizational thing between the rational mind and the imaginative mind, and they dance together, and you let the imaginative mind lead the dance.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is a prerequisite. I've listened to you talk about your book, and this week I saw it for the first time I was able to hold the book, recently pressed, and I never understood the title until just now. Write what you don't know, and I'm like, what the hell is this? What does this mean? And I get it. I mean, you're trying to dread. I mean, my take on that is you're trying to imagine. You're trying to dredge with the tool of imagination something that you've never done before, and that's really, really challenging. And if you can do that, and then you're finding new ground. You're a pioneer.
So just a small variation on that. What we're asking people to do is to trust that they know a lot more than they think they know on the surface. Officially, one might say, well, I don't know that much. But every experience you've had is inside of you somewhere. So the dredging is inviting your imagination to help you bring things up you haven't thought of. So it takes a bit of courage to go in there and do that.
Courage and I would say faith. You have to have faith in yourself. And wonderful. Here we are in Hymns and Hollers on a Sunday morning talking about faith. I mean, it's really a spiritual endeavor. You don't need the prerequisite of Christianity or you don't need to be a Muslim. You don't need to be everybody can have it. And
And the imagination has been with us since the beginning of time. And our imaginations have allowed us to codify ways of thinking that have created the religious experiences, created traditions, created all the things we use now to help us try to understand the infinite, what's impossible to understand. But we still, even in the impossibility of it, we still attempt, and that attempt has great value.
yeah. I always love my exercises with you, creative exercises of just sitting and trying to do things that we've never done before. It's tricky. I'm going to do something that I have done before, but I'm going to, all the while, I'm going to be imagining me performing this solo in a theater. I really want to record this song at some point and do a compelling version of it. It's a Jimi Hendrix song. And here we go. I'm setting my delay. Hold on. I'm not just looking at cat videos here. I don't know why it's not working the way it normally is. What the heck is going on? There we go. Since the Christmas story or the nativity story involves angels signifying to the wise men that there was something important in that manger, I thought we'd pay a little tribute to the angels with a Jimi Hendrix song. The angel came down from heaven yesterday. She stayed with me long enough to rescue me. And she told me a story yesterday about the sweet love between the moon and the deep blue sea. And then she spread her wings out over me. She said she's coming back. She said she's coming back tomorrow. Fly on, my sweet angel. Fly on through the sky. Fly on, my sweet angel. Tomorrow I'm gonna be by your side. Sure enough, that morning came unto me, silver wings silhouetted against the child sunrise. Oh, and the angel, she said unto me, today is a day that you're gonna fly. Take my hand, you're gonna be my man, you're gonna fly. And then she flew high over yonder. the tricky thing about playing with the delay, this is a little tech talk, is that the delay, by nature of being a delay, it kind of records and remembers what you do and plays it back at whatever setting you play it back. So when I'm playing a classic ascending line like Jimi Hendrix does at the end of that, so the delay's on, so I'm going to make my point. But these notes, a note that's a half step away from another, meaning like that, those are all half steps. They're not meant to be stacked on top of each other. When you play this chord and go to this chord, you're really meant to get out of town, you go into the next town. But a delay will play A on top of B on top of C if you don't set it. If you set it a certain way. So at the very end of that song, it was this sonic train wreck. Which is not now, because once I play the chord, it's finished. But with a delay on it, it remembers it. And so it puts two notes that really don't belong in the same space at the same time. And it creates this dissonance. So it's a mistake. And I didn't realize that until the very end. And so that's not a smart thing. But what a beautiful song. And I've tried to do it instrumentally. So when I say instrumentally, I'm trying to convey the whole song, the melody and the chords, without me singing it. So that's what enables me to play a lot of solo gigs, because once I sing a song, fly, oh my sweet angel. All right, I've seen the song, right? Then what do I got to do? Am I just going to play the chords and take a break? That's okay. It's not bad. But so I've filled time by playing what I call a chord melody, or what my former mentor when I was younger called chord melody. I play a chord melody version of that song. Now, chord melodies were normally something that we played to songs like, beautiful songs from the 60s, beautiful music, or what they, for instance, Michel Legrand's What Are You Doing the Rest of Your Life? Haven't played it in a while, but I love doing that. If you want to see me at my happiest, I'm just sitting on a stool playing chord melody songs. And check out some of the ones that I've done online. There's some James Bond versions. I do something I'm really proud of, the Casino Royale, the James Bond song. I've got a version of Goldfinger up there, and Diamonds Are Forever. Ooh, Shirley Bassey's second James Bond song, I think it was. I do a version of that I'm really proud of. These things take forever to learn. But I've got a new idea for a show, and I hope I haven't talked about it last week. But there's a pastor down the road in the church space that I played in last night in St. Louis, and I'm going to start doing a show in the springtime around Easter called Jesus versus James Bond. So you guys put that on your calendar. I'm hoping to bring it to different cities. Jesus versus James Bond. Yes, stay with me. Don't turn the channel. And I said this. I pitched this to the local pastor. I said, I want to do this in this religious space. And he was like, you've lost your mind, Jesus versus James Bond. They're going to run us out of town here. And I said, hold on. This fascination we have with eternal life. That's the Bond story, as my friend James Navi was saying. It's the same story. It's just we're just taking the biblical tale and riding on that. There's one of the James Bond episodes, excuse me, movies. I think it's Skyfall, where it starts and he's basically dead. He falls off a bridge or something, and for the beginning of the movie, you think James Bond is dead, and then you think, well, why did they make a movie if he's dead? And then you realize all the way throughout the movie, it's telling you the story of how that came to be, but that he survived that treacherous fall, and how did he survive, and so on. But so this concept of resurrection, James Bond gets resurrected in so many episodes. So I think it's perfect for Easter time. And I'm going to be playing a bunch of hymns and hollers and James Bond songs. I think it's great. I don't know if it's great. Again, possibly my delusion of grandeur. But I can imagine it being well received. So why don't we... oh, yeah. I was thinking of how grateful I am for the folks who do contribute to keep this show going. Sometimes people send me the big checks, and sometimes people send me numerous small checks. And either way, it answers that question for me if I'm having any positive effect. And you don't have to pay me to give me that sensation of effectiveness. However, it is one measure, and I'm very grateful for that measure. Stephen Baker, thank you very much. Becky Hoffman, a friend who lives in the Berkshires, in the deep woods of the Berkshires. Stephen Butler and Carol Johnson, Jackie Doyle, all those folks gave me a little bit last week. Eric Tomlinson, the list goes on, and I am very, very grateful. And thank you. I sometimes battle with this sense of, I'm not so sure it's depression, but it's a sense of ineffectiveness, of my reach. And it sets in especially during the winter time when I'm not traveling around and playing much. And so I've got a couple of months here ahead of not being able to contact people except for this show. But I'm working on stuff the whole time. And it's nice to have this redemption, if you will, to make it sound a little bit spiritual, that my work is being received, and I hope you're getting some personal redemption in the work that you do. We have to keep reaching out, and I love that about the internet. But it's a friend told me one time, said, Walt, I understand why you might get a little bit depressed and blue during the winter months, and you haven't toured for a long while. But think of a battleship salesman, a battleship salesman. Now, I hate to make an analogy that borrows from one of the tools of war and death and so on, but just bear with me for a second. I'm trying to make a point. A battleship salesman might sell one battleship, if there even is a thing called a battleship salesman. But picture there being a battleship salesman, and he goes door to door to different countries. And you don't sell a battleship every week. He's not having champagne parties, with his buddies down at the bar for having sold a battleship every week. You sell a battleship once every 5 years or something, But that battleship, it's kind of like the farmer mentality. When you get your money, you got to set that money aside, and it's got to stretch out all of this time. But in the meantime, you're strategizing on how to sell that battleship. And you're learning all you can about that battleship, and you have to prop yourself up. And you have to keep yourself from those doldrums. And that's what's challenging about this. It's like while I'm learning these songs and while I'm not on tour, I'm trying to provide y'all with new material. When I come around and say hello again, I've got some fresh things to share. It's tricky. I mean, I think in your own realm you can relate to this. I've always, Nave's here with me, James Nave, a writer from Taos, New Mexico, if you just tuned in. And I've always admired how you guys, and a good friend of mine, Dan Rubright, just wrote a book. And I said, how did you do this? The last time I saw you, you didn't have the book. Now you have it. He said, well, the last time you saw me was 4 months ago. He said, I spent 2 months writing this book. I said, how do you write? How do you do this? How do you write a book in 2 months? He goes, I just dedicated 2 months to it. It was my routine. And I admire that so much. That's just hard for me. I'm just busy just living, taking the dog to the vet, fixing things around the house. It's just, I kind of create in the holes in what I call life's in-betweens, and I need to have more routine. I really do, because it seems like creative time is harder and harder and harder for me to defend as I move through life. But I love it so much, and I love spending this time with y'all. I'm going to end with a Christmas song. I know I'm at the 10 o'clock mark, and I like to end before some of the this is one that I didn't play last night, and I don't know that I'm going to do it that well, but I might do okay on it. I'm going to sight read it. Thanks to James Nave. If y'all are in the St. Louis area, come by our house today. I'm not going to announce it over the broadcast here, but just how to get in touch with me. And we're going to do, James Nave is going to recite a Child's Christmas in Wales in its entirety. And I'll be hanging ornaments on the tree and drinking eggnog and listening. And so this is one of my favorite Christmas songs. I hope you take pleasure. And this is Walter Parks with Hymns and Hollers. In the bleak midwinter, I don't really know who it's written by. Probably some bearded Englishman sitting in a cottage on the coast of Scotland or England or something. I lied. I'm going to end with another song. This is one of mine, and it's going to bring you up and have you dancing. And I would love proof and substantiation that you're dancing. Please, people, send me a picture of some sort or video of you celebrating. This is one that I wrote in the wintertime when I was over in London, England, traveling with Richie Havens. I was holed up in a little hotel in a part of London, north of London, called Swiss Cottage. I don't know if you've ever been there. And I wrote this song thinking about St. Louis and thinking about Scott Joplin, thinking the Christmas in the wintertime was kind of seeping through or working its way through the cold English red brick building in which I was staying. Because you're never comfortable in England, in the wintertime. They just never have adequate heating, and it's just all part of the whole, the realm of England in the wintertime. And you sort of get used to it and suffer through it. But I wrote this song, and I called it for a year. I called it the London Rag, because it was a ragtime thing, Scott Joplin in nature. And got back to the States, and I was driving around in my Ford 150 pickup truck. Not too long, I needed to check the oil, and I looked under the driver's seat for that red rag that you check the oil with, and I said, well, I have a new name for this song now, and it's going to be called the Dipstick Rag. I'm in the wrong tuning. Hold on a second. That was terrible. Well, what's that? I set that up so well. I was set up for an Allman Brothers song. I'm not sure. I just wasn't in the mood to play it. That was, it's just the way it is with me. Take some of that reverb off. Can you hear that, y'all? There we go. Another episode of Hymns and Hollers. You know, I played that pretty darn good, and I don't mind saying I do every now and then whip myself for falling short of the mark, but I played that one pretty good, and so that's the flip side of it. And I know y'all can hear my mistakes, but I think it's crucial to also acknowledge when you do a good job, and I hope you do good work when you're getting through the week, and maybe we'll check in. Please spread word about the show to other folks. I appreciate your support. I'm going to be coming to your town, mostly in the south and the East Coast, probably from Maine all the way down to Florida in the spring. We're putting tour dates together now. Might be solo, might occasionally be my group Swamp Cabbage, I'm not sure, or some version thereof. Might be playing with some new musicians or new combinations of musicians. It's going to be exciting. Thanks to James Nabe, and who's got a new collaboration with Allegra Houston, and they've got a book out called Write What You Don't Know. And in their honor, I played What I Didn't Know on that last song. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I was doing that improvisation of bum 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 I never do that. I mean, I always sing through that, sing lyrics, but just scatting and that kind of thing is tricky. And I just told myself when I was playing that, just let yourself go. Don't think, just do it. Just see if it comes out. Just rest upon the faith that I can play the foundation of that song and let my voice just soar and go wherever it could. And I did that because I was trying to experiment with y'all's process. And I've realized in the last couple of months that Swamp Cabbage, in essence, is we're like jazz musicians who play folk music with rock and roll instruments, but our approach to music is jazz. And if you have a jazz drummer playing all that stuff, it makes sense in a jazz context. And I've been so excited to embrace that part of my creativity and just let that jazz be what it is. And because I love jazz, it's my favorite place to be. And I appreciate y'all being with me today. Walter Parks, Hymns and Hollers, coming to you from St. Louis, Missouri, as they say around here. Happy holidays, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.